The mashed potatoes were perfect this year. That's what I was thinking when Uncle John decided to ruin Thanksgiving dinner with his annual commentary on my life choices. So, Emma, he said, stabbing a piece of turkey with the kind of aggression that suggested he'd been waiting all evening for this moment. Still messing around with that internet thing? What is it, crafts? Jewelry. I looked up from my plate. Around the table sat 15 members of the Chin family, all focused on their food, but I could feel the attention shifting toward me. This was tradition now. Uncle John's yearly interrogation of my professional failures. E-commerce, I said quietly. I run an e-commerce platform. E-commerce. He repeated it like it was a made-up word. Right. So you sell things on the computer. From your apartment. Something like that. Aunt Sarah, his wife, set down her wine glass with a delicate clink. Emma, honey, you're 29 years old. Don't you think it's time to get a real job? With benefits? A 401k? Your cousin Michael is a regional manager at a bank now. Very stable. Cousin Michael, sitting 3 seats down, had the grace to look uncomfortable. He knew what I did. We talked about it at last year's Christmas party after he'd had 3 beers and asked for business advice. But he wasn't going to contradict his aunt. My business is stable, I said, taking another bite of potatoes. Uncle John laughed. It was his trademark laugh, loud, condescending, designed to make you feel small. Stable? Emma, you live in a studio apartment and drive a 10-year-old Honda. That's not stability. That's poverty with Wi-Fi. My mother, sitting to my right, put her hand on my arm. A warning squeeze. Don't engage. Don't make a scene. Keep the peace. I'd been keeping the peace for 6 years. 6 years since I'd launched Chin Digital Solutions from my college dorm room. 6 years since I'd turned a simple dropshipping website into a multi-platform e-commerce empire. 6 years since I'd quietly acquired a real estate portfolio that included 4 shopping centers, 2 office buildings, and a regional mall in the suburbs. The same mall where Uncle John had leased his flagship sporting goods store for the past 3 years. But my family didn't know any of that. They thought I was struggling. They thought I sold handmade bracelets on Etsy or something equally quaint and unprofitable. I'd never corrected them because honestly, what was the point? Uncle John had decided who I was the day I'd turned down a job at his friend's insurance company to waste time on the internet. Emma, my grandmother said from the head of the table, her voice gentle but worried. Your uncle has a point, dear. The internet is so unstable. What if something happens to your little shop? You need security. I have security, Grandma. Uncle John snorted. Security? You rent a studio apartment above a nail salon. You don't even have a car payment because your car is older than some of my employees' kids. Aunt Sarah leaned in, her expression dripping with practiced sympathy. We're just concerned, Emma. You're not getting any younger. What happens when you want to buy a house? Start a family? No bank will give you a mortgage based on internet sales. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I appreciate the concern, I said, my voice perfectly level. But I'm doing fine. Fine. Uncle John was warming up now. He'd had 3 glasses of wine and his favorite topic, other people's failures, was on the table. Emma, let me tell you something about the real world. I've been in retail for 25 years. I know what real business looks like. It's brick and mortar. It's inventory you can touch. It's customers who walk through a door. Your little website hobby isn't business. It's a side hustle at best. My phone buzzed again. Then again. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. I walked out of the dining room into my parents' backyard, the November cold biting through my sweater. 3 missed calls from David Reeves, my property manager. 2 texts. David, Emma, urgent. We need to discuss the Riverside Mall situation. David, the acquisition finalized. Previous owners' leases are up for review. Several require immediate attention. I called him back. David, it's Emma. What's going on? Miss Chen, sorry to bother you on Thanksgiving, but we've completed the purchase of Riverside Mall. I'm reviewing the existing leases and there are several that were poorly structured by the previous owner. Below market rates, unusual terms, some that are actually costing the property money. I need authorization to begin renegotiations. Riverside Mall. I'd been acquiring it through a shell company for the past 8 months. The previous owner was retiring and I'd gotten it for $47 million, about 15% below market value because of deferred maintenance and those poorly structured leases David was talking about. Send me the list of problem leases, I said. I'll review them tonight. Already sent. Check your email. There's one in particular, a sporting goods store called John's Athletic Wear. The owner is paying about 40% below current market rate for his square footage. And the lease terms include a maintenance waiver that's costing us about $180,000 annually. The lease is up for renewal in 60 days. I'd recommend we either renegotiate to market rate or decline renewal. My stomach dropped. John's Athletic Wear. Uncle John's store. Send me all the documentation, I said quietly. Every detail. I'll let you know how to proceed. Understood. Sorry again for the holiday interruption. It's fine. Thanks, David. I stood in the cold for 5 minutes, watching my breath create clouds in the November air. Uncle John's store. Of course. The universe had a sense of humor. When I walked back inside, dinner had moved on to dessert. Uncle John was holding court about his business success. Expanded to 12,000 square feet last year, he was saying. Best location in Riverside Mall. Prime foot traffic. The old owner gave me an excellent deal because he recognized quality tenants. Not everyone can negotiate like I can. Aunt Sarah nodded proudly. John has such a head for business. Maybe you should ask him for advice, Emma. About running a real operation. I sat down and accepted the slice of pumpkin pie my mother handed me. Maybe, I said. Uncle John leaned back in his chair, expansive with wine and self-satisfaction. I'm serious, Emma. You want to learn about real business? Come work for me. I could use someone to handle my online presence. Social media, website updates, that kind of thing. It's not real work, but it would give you experience in a legitimate business environment. I'd pay you, let's say $15 an hour. Around the table, several relatives nodded approvingly. What a generous offer. What a kind uncle. I'll think about it, I said, eating my pie. My younger sister Maya, the only person in the family who knew the truth about my business, caught my eye from across the table. She looked like she wanted to scream. I gave her a tiny head shake. Not yet. The evening dragged on. Uncle John had several more drinks. His commentary expanded from my failures to include a general dissertation on kids these days, and their refusal to understand real work. Everything's an app now, he complained. Everything's online. No one wants to work with their hands anymore. No one wants to build something real. I nodded along, half listening while I reviewed the Riverside Mall lease documents on my phone under the table. David had been right. Uncle John's lease was a disaster. Signed 6 years ago during a period when the previous owner was desperate to fill space. It locked in rates that were now $8,500 per month below market value. The maintenance waiver meant the mall paid for all his HVAC repairs, structural maintenance and parking lot upkeep, costs that should have been split with the tenant. The lease was up for renewal on January 15th, 60 days from now. I had options. I could renegotiate to market rates, which would increase his monthly payment by about 65%. I could decline renewal and offer the space to another tenant. Or I could do nothing and continue losing money on the space. I looked up at Uncle John, who was now explaining to my father why internet businesses would never replace real retail. Mark my words, he said, gesturing with his wine glass. In 10 years, all these online shops will be gone. People want to touch products. They want to see them in person. That's why my store keeps growing while these internet kids keep failing. Decision made. I typed out an email to David. Proceed with standard lease renewal terms for John's Athletic Wear. Market rate adjustment, standard maintenance split, 60 days notice. No special accommodations. David replied within minutes. Confirmed. I'll have legal draft the proposal and send it tomorrow. Just to confirm, you want this handled by the book? No family considerations. By the book, I typed back. This is business. The next morning I woke up to a text from Maya. Please tell me you're going to do something about Uncle John. I can't watch him treat you like that anymore. Maya was 23, still in grad school, and the only family member I'd told about Chin Digital Solutions. She'd figured it out 2 years ago when she'd found a Forbes article about 30 under 30 e-commerce innovators that featured me. I'd made her promise not to tell anyone. Our family couldn't handle the truth, that the failure they pitted had built something bigger than all their conventional successes combined. Something's already in motion, I replied. Just wait. Cryptic. I like it. Thanksgiving Part 2 is at Uncle John's house next month. Are you going? The post-Thanksgiving gathering. Another tradition. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah hosted a second celebration at their house the weekend after Thanksgiving. Bigger than the actual holiday. More family, more food, more opportunities for Uncle John to demonstrate his success. Wouldn't miss it, I typed back. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched from a distance as events unfolded. David sent the lease renewal proposal to John's Athletic Wear on November 27th. Standard terms. Market rate rent of $14,200 per month, up from his current $8,500. Standard maintenance splits. 2-year term with a 3% annual increase. According to David's reports, Uncle John called the mall office 17 times in the first week. He wanted to speak to the owner. He wanted to negotiate. He wanted to understand why his sweetheart deal wasn't being honored. David's assistant told him the same thing each time. The property is under new ownership. All leases are being standardized to market rates. You have until January 15th to accept or vacate. Uncle John apparently didn't believe it could happen. I watched his social media posts grow increasingly frantic. First, it was confident, dealing with some new landlord issues at the store, but don't worry, I've been in business too long to let some corporate bean counter push me around. Then concerned, the new mall ownership is trying to increase my rent by 70%. This is what's wrong with corporate greed. Small businesses like mine built this community. Then desperate. If anyone knows who bought Riverside Mall, please reach out. I need to speak with someone reasonable. This rent increase will destroy my business. I didn't respond. I didn't engage. I simply monitored the situation while running my actual business. Chin Digital Solutions, which had processed $340 million in transactions this quarter across our various platforms. The post-Thanksgiving gathering arrived on December 18th. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah's house was decorated like a winter wonderland. Lights everywhere. A catering company handling the food. A bartender mixing drinks in their expansive kitchen. I arrived in my 10-year-old Honda, wearing a sweater I'd bought from Target. Maya met me at the door. "This is going to be interesting," she whispered. Uncle John's been freaking out about his lease. He's convinced the new mall owner is personally targeting him. Is he here? In the living room. Holding court. Third drink already. I found him exactly where Maya said, surrounded by relatives, explaining his persecution at the hands of corporate greed. Faceless corporation, he was saying. Some investment group from out of state. They don't care about local businesses. They don't care about the jobs I've created. They just see numbers on a spreadsheet. Aunt Sarah, standing beside him, looked worried for the first time since I'd known her. The confidence was cracked. "Can you fight it?" my father asked. "I'm trying. I've called everyone I know in commercial real estate. No one can tell me who actually owns the property. It's buried in LLCs and holding companies. But I'm not giving up. I built that store from nothing. I'm not letting some corporate raider destroy it." I accepted a glass of wine from a passing server and found a seat near the fireplace. The evening progressed. Dinner was served. Uncle John drank more, talked more, his anger at the mysterious mall owner growing with each glass. "Probably some tech bro," he spat. "Some kid who made money in apps and thinks he understands real estate. These people have no respect for established businesses. No understanding of what it takes to build something real." My phone buzzed. "David, Miss Chin, John's Athletic Wear has requested a meeting with ownership. They've indicated they want to negotiate. How do you want to proceed?" I typed back. "Schedule a meeting for Monday, December 20th, 10 a.m. I'll attend personally." "You're attending? That's unusual. This one's personal. Don't tell them who the owner is. Just say a representative will be there." "Understood." I set my phone down and found Uncle John staring at me. "Something important?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Big internet sale happening?" "Just work stuff," I said. "Work?" He laughed. "Emma, when are you going to stop pretending that what you do is work? Real work means showing up somewhere. It means having employees and inventory and actual responsibilities. John, my mother said quietly. Maybe we should. No, let me finish. Emma needs to hear this. She's wasting her life on a fantasy. He could be doing something real. He could have a career. Instead, she's almost 30, living in a studio, driving that embarrassment of a car, playing businesswoman on the internet. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. I met Uncle John's eyes. You're right, I said calmly. I should definitely get a real job. Maybe in retail. Maybe at a sporting goods store. Do you know anyone hiring? He missed the irony completely. If you're serious, I could probably find you something. Part-time. Stockroom maybe. It wouldn't pay much, but at least you'd learn what actual work looks like. That's very generous, I said. I'll keep it in mind. Aunt Sarah leaned forward. Emma, we're trying to help you. You can't keep living like this. Don't you want stability? Security? Don't you want to buy a house someday? I do want those things, I agreed. Then you need to face reality. Internet businesses fail. Retail is forever. Just look at John's store. 15 years of steady growth. That's what real business looks like. I nodded. Impressive. How's the store doing lately? Uncle John's expression darkened. It would be doing fine if some corporate vulture hadn't bought the mall and decided to squeeze out local businesses. That's terrible. Have you tried negotiating? They won't negotiate. I can't even find out who owns the place. It's some shadowy investment group hiding behind lawyers. I've got a meeting Monday with some representative, but I'm not optimistic. These corporate types don't care about anything except profit. Maybe the representative will be reasonable, I offered. Doubtful. These people don't understand retail. They don't understand relationships. They just see dollar signs. He drained his wine glass. But I'm not going down without a fight. I've built something real. Something that matters. That's more than most people can say. He looked directly at me when he said it. I smiled. You're absolutely right, Uncle John. You've built something real. I hope Monday's meeting goes well. That weekend dragged. Maya called me Saturday night. Please tell me you're the one who bought the mall, she said without preamble. Why would you think that? Because you're being too calm. You're never this calm when Uncle John goes off on you. Are you going to his meeting Monday? Maybe. Emma Chin, are you seriously going to reveal yourself as his landlord? I'm seriously going to attend a business meeting. Oh my God. Can I come watch? Absolutely not. This is unfair. I've watched him trash you for 6 years. I deserve to see his face when he realizes. Maya, this isn't about revenge. It's a little about revenge. It's about business. His lease terms were unsustainable. Any new owner would have renegotiated. But you're not any new owner. You're his niece. The one he's been calling a failure for years. I didn't respond. Emma, please. Just tell me what you're going to do. I'm going to run my business professionally. That's all. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed carefully, business suit, heels, the kind of outfit I wore for important investor meetings. My hair was pulled back. I wore the diamond earrings I'd bought myself after my company's first $100 million year. I drove to Riverside Mall in my Honda, parked in a distant spot and walked to the management office. David met me at the entrance. Miss Chin, everything's ready. Conference room B. They arrived 10 minutes ago. John Chin and his lawyer. His lawyer. Small firm. Local guy. Seems relatively competent. Good. Let's not keep them waiting. David led me down a corridor to a conference room. Through the glass wall, I could see Uncle John pacing, his lawyer seated at the table reviewing documents. Aunt Sarah was there too, sitting in the corner, her hands clasped tightly. I paused outside the door. Took a breath. David looked at me. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Completely sure. It's going to be complicated. Family and business don't mix well. They shouldn't have mixed business and family in the first place. I opened the door. Uncle John turned, his expression already arranged for confrontation. He looked at me, looked confused, then looked annoyed. Emma, what are you doing here? We're in a meeting. I know. I'm your meeting. He stared. What? I walked to the head of the table and set down my portfolio. David closed the door and stood beside it. Mr. Chin, I said formally. Thank you for coming. I'm Emma Chin, owner of Sterling Property Group, which recently acquired Riverside Mall. I understand you have concerns about your lease renewal terms. The color drained from Uncle John's face. His lawyer looked between us, sensing a complication. Aunt Sarah made a small sound in the corner. That's not funny, Emma, Uncle John finally said. Seriously, where's the actual owner? Is this a joke? I pulled out my tablet and opened a file. This is the purchase agreement for Riverside Mall, finalized November 25th. Sterling Property Group, which I own, acquired the property for $47 million. David Reeves, standing by the door, is my property manager. This is not a joke. Uncle John sat down hard. That's impossible. You don't have $47 million. You sell things on the internet from a studio apartment. I run Chin Digital Solutions, a multi-platform e-commerce company that processed $340 million in transactions last quarter. The studio apartment is a rental I keep for convenience. I actually own a penthouse downtown, but I've never felt the need to correct anyone's assumptions about my living situation. His lawyer cleared his throat. Miss Chin, if you're indeed the property owner, we should discuss. We'll get to that, I said. But first I want to address something. Uncle John, you've spent 6 years telling me I don't have a real business. That I'm wasting my life. That I need to learn what actual work looks like. You offered me a part-time stockroom position 3 days ago because you felt sorry for me. Emma, I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you did. You assumed I was failing because I didn't fit your definition of success. Because I drove an old car and wore Target clothes and didn't brag about my accomplishments. Aunt Sarah found her voice. Emma, if we had known. If you had known, you would have treated me differently. But you shouldn't need to know someone's net worth to treat them with respect. Uncle John's lawyer tried again. Perhaps we should focus on the lease terms. The lease terms are non-negotiable, I said, pulling out a document. Your current lease is $8,500 per month with a maintenance waiver. Market rate for your square footage is $14,200 with standard maintenance splits. Those are the renewal terms. You have until January 15th to accept or vacate. Uncle John stood up. You can't do this. I'm family. Exactly. Your family. For 6 years, family has mocked my career. My choices. My life. And now family wants special treatment in a business deal. Emma, please. That rent increase will destroy me. My margins are already tight. I can't afford. You can't afford it because you've been operating on artificially low rent for 6 years. You've been building your business on terms that were never sustainable. That's not my fault. His lawyer jumped in. Miss Chin, surely we can negotiate something. A gradual increase, perhaps? Phasing in the new rate over time. I considered it. I'd already discussed this possibility with David. It was the reasonable solution. The professional solution. But I looked at Uncle John, at his desperate expression, and I remembered Thanksgiving dinner. The laughter. The condescension. The casual cruelty. Here's what I'll do, I said slowly. I'll offer you the same terms you offered me. A part-time arrangement. Below market rate. Something to help you while you figure out what real work looks like. Uncle John's face went red. That's not the same. Isn't it? You offered me $15 an hour to learn about real business. I'm offering you $9,500 per month. Slightly below market rate, to keep your location while you figure out how to run a sustainable operation. It's actually quite generous. $9,500 is still more than I'm paying now. Yes, that's how market rates work. The property was undervalued. Values change. Businesses adapt or close. Aunt Sarah stood up. Emma, please, don't do this. We're sorry. We didn't understand. But you can't destroy John's business over hurt feelings. I'm not destroying anything. I'm operating a property at market rates. Every other tenant in this mall pays fair value. Why should Uncle John be different? Because he's family. Aunt Sarah's voice broke. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I met her eyes. It meant something to me every time you told me to get a real job. Every time you smirked at family dinners. Every time you treated my career like a hobby. The room fell silent. Finally, Uncle John's lawyer spoke. Miss Chin, what would it take for you to reconsider? There must be some arrangement. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. David had sent a message. 2 other retailers have inquired about the athletic wear space. Both solid credit. Both willing to pay full market rate. I looked up at Uncle John. At his desperate expression. At Aunt Sarah's tears. And I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted something else entirely. Here's my final offer, I said. I'll phase in the rent increase over 12 months. $9,500 per month for the first quarter. $11,000 for the second. $12,500 for the third. Full market rate of $14,200 starting in month 13. Standard maintenance splits begin immediately. Take it or leave it. Uncle John's lawyer did quick math on his notepad. That's actually reasonable. John, you could work with this. Uncle John looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this? Because unlike you, I don't mix family with business. This is a business decision. The phased increase gives you time to adjust while ensuring my property operates at market rate. It's fair. Fair, he repeated. After what I said. What you said was cruel. But I'm not running a property management company to teach you lessons. I'm running it to make money. This deal makes money while giving you a chance to adapt. That's business. His lawyer pushed the documents across the table. I recommend you accept, John. Uncle John stared at the papers for a long moment. Then he picked up a pen and signed. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me. Pay your rent on time. I gathered my materials and stood. David opened the door. Emma, Aunt Sarah said as I reached the exit. We really are sorry. About everything. I turned back. I believe you. But being sorry doesn't change 6 years of behavior. It just means you feel bad now that you know the truth. What can we do? Treat people with respect regardless of what you think they've achieved. That's all anyone wants. I left the conference room. David followed me to the parking lot. That was remarkably restrained, he said. Was it? I expected more drama. More revelation. You just conducted a business meeting. That's because it is business. Uncle John's behavior was personal, but my response doesn't have to be. The family's going to talk. They always do. I drove back to my penthouse, changed into comfortable clothes, and spent the afternoon working on Q4 strategy for Chin Digital Solutions. My phone exploded with messages around 4 p.m. Maya, Uncle John just called Dad. Everyone knows. Mom is freaking out. Maya, Dad wants to talk to you. He's confused. Mom is crying. Christina is laughing. Maya, I'm laughing too for the record. This is the best day of my life. My mother called. I let it go to voicemail. My father called. Cousin Michael texted, Emma, I need to apologize. I've known about your company for a year and never said anything to defend you. I'm sorry. My grandmother called. I answered that one. Emma, is it true? You own buildings. Several buildings, Grandma. And you're successful? Very. Then why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me if I had? Silence. Then a sad laugh. Probably not. Your uncle has been calling everyone. He's very upset. I imagine he is. He says you're making him pay more rent. Market rate rent. Yes. He says it's revenge. It's business. Emma, dear, can I give you some advice? Of course. Your uncle is a proud man. A foolish proud man, but proud nonetheless. He's going to struggle with this. With knowing you're more successful than he is. With knowing he misjudged you so completely. That's his problem, Grandma. It is. But he's still family. Don't let his foolishness make you cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm being fair. I know. That's why I'm proud of you. But Emma, don't become so good at business that you forget how to be good at family. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights. The sun had set. The December cold was sharp. My phone rang again. Uncle John. I almost didn't answer. But Grandma's words lingered. Hello. Emma. His voice was rough. I need to say something. Okay. I was wrong. About everything. Your business. Your choices. The way I treated you. I was completely wrong. Yes, you were. I don't have an excuse. I thought I knew what success looked like, and when you didn't fit that picture, I decided you were failing. I never considered that maybe my picture was too small. I said nothing. I'm sorry, he continued. Really sorry. Not because you own my building. Although that's certainly motivating. But because I hurt you. Repeatedly. For years. That's not who I want to be. Thank you for saying that. Will you come to Christmas dinner? At your parents' house? I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like the chance to do better. I thought about it. About family and forgiveness and whether either one was worth the effort. I'll come, I said finally. But Uncle John, if you ever offer me a part-time stockroom position again, I'm doubling your rent. He laughed. Sounded like crying. Fair enough. Christmas dinner was awkward. Everyone knew now. My parents had apparently spent 2 weeks processing the information that their struggling daughter was actually quite successful. Mom hugged me for a long time when I arrived. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid better attention. It's okay, Mom. It's not. But thank you for saying so. Uncle John was subdued. Polite. He asked about my business with genuine interest, not condescension. Aunt Sarah apologized 3 separate times. Maya pulled me aside before dessert. How does it feel? Being vindicated. Honestly, kind of hollow. Really. I didn't build my company to prove them wrong. I built it because I loved the work. Their approval was never the goal. But you got it anyway. I guess so. For what it's worth, I'm glad they finally see you. I looked around the room. At my family, gathered around my parents' table, talking and laughing and trying to understand who I actually was. Yeah, I said. Me too. 3 months later, Uncle John's first increased rent payment cleared. He'd restructured his business, cut some expenses and raised his prices slightly. According to David, the store was doing fine. My family dynamics had shifted. People asked about my work now. Actually asked with interest. Mom stopped suggesting I needed a real job. Dad asked for business advice occasionally. Uncle John and I had lunch once a month. Awkward at first, but it got easier. He wanted to learn from me, he said. Wanted to understand what he'd missed. I spent 25 years thinking I understood business, he told me over coffee in April. Turns out I understood one very specific type of business. And even that not as well as I thought. You built something real, I said. That counts. But you built something bigger. And you did it while I was mocking you. That's got to sting. It did. But I'm getting over it. Are you really? I thought about it. About the years of dismissal. The condescension. The casual cruelty. Yeah, I said. I really am. And I meant it. 6 years of being underestimated had taught me something valuable. Success doesn't require anyone's approval. It doesn't need to be loud or visible or validated by people who don't understand it. It just needs to be real. And mine was real enough that I could afford to be generous with the people who doubted it. Even Uncle John. Especially Uncle John. Because at the end of the day, I hadn't built Chin Digital Solutions to prove him wrong. I'd built it because I knew I was right. And that was enough. My phone buzzed. David, Miss Chin, we have an opportunity to acquire another property. Strip mall in Westfield. Interested? I smiled and typed back, send me the details. Uncle John noticed. Work. Always. You know, he said slowly, I still can't believe you own my building. I own several buildings. Yours just happens to be one of them. How many? Properties? 17. Buildings? 23. He whistled. And you still drive that old Honda. It gets me where I need to go. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell us? About any of it. I set down my coffee cup. Because the moment I told you, everything would change. You treat me differently. Not because I'm different, but because you know I'm successful. I wanted to know if anyone would respect me when they thought I was failing. And we didn't. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Uncle John said finally, I respect you now. Not because of the buildings or the money, but because you stayed kind when you had every right to be cruel. Thanks, Uncle John. Call me John. I think I've lost the right to uncle for a while. I smiled. I'll stick with Uncle John. It's tradition. Tradition, he repeated. Like Thanksgiving dinner? Exactly like that. Are you coming this year? Wouldn't miss it. Think you'll tell everyone about your latest acquisition? Probably not. Why not? I stood gathering my things. Because success doesn't need an audience, Uncle John. It just needs to be real. He watched me go, shaking his head. Your grandmother was right about you. What did she say? That you were always the smartest one in the family. We just couldn't see it because we weren't looking. I walked out into the spring sunshine, climbed into my 10-year-old Honda and drove to my next meeting. Behind me, Uncle John's athletic wear stood in my mall paying market rate rent, finally operating on terms that made sense. And I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Not vindication. Not triumph. Just peace. The quiet satisfaction of knowing that I'd done it right. Built something real. Stayed true to myself. And proved that success doesn't need to be loud to be legitimate. It just needs to be yours.